Okay, we're back, and here we go. You can see we're online, and right now all this green means that what's on my screen is exactly the same as what's in the processor. So let's take a look. We're going to start with our pulse timer, and just a quick reminder how that works. It creates a 10-second pulse every time we run that thing. Okay, so if I modify this timer switch to 1 and modify it back to 0, that thing's going to keep going until it's attained a 10-second pulse, and there we go, it's going to shut off. And if we leave the timer switch on, it's going to do the same thing. Well, what if every once in a while we wanted to control this timer from someplace else and maybe create a different width of pulse? Okay, we can do that. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create another branch, and I'm going to put a normally open contact on that, and then I'm going to grab this start pulse timer instruction and I'm going to bring that over to the end. So here, let's use something like IN1, and yeah, that's already in our database and it's already global, so that's perfect. And here, when we create this TP instruction, this is our start pulse timer. It's got question marks on top, question marks below. On the bottom, it's looking for a time value, and on the top, it's looking for the name of a timer. Well, our only pulse timer is pulse timer, so if we come over here and look for the list, there's our pulse timer right there. And for a time, you see we've got a 10-second pulse width here. Well, maybe we want a 20-second. So T pound 20S. Hit enter, and there we go. And now it's saying unexpected input in. I think I accidentally put a decimal point at the end of that. Okay, so now we've got this instruction which should create a pulse on T1 out for 20 seconds. So let's run up. You see now over here we've got some orange exclamations and our half blue, half orange. That's telling us, hey, what's on our screen is not what's in the PLC. So let's go ahead and just download and load. Okay, now we're all green again. We're still up and running. And let's test this logic right here. So our timer switch, when we modify it to 1 and modify it back to 0, you see what happens. We start timing 6 seconds, 7, 8, 9. We get to 10 and our pulse dies. When we come down to input 1, modify to 1, modify to 0, that should go up even beyond 10 all the way to 20. 8, 9, 10, 11. And if we come over here and we try to interfere with it over, with some other input, doesn't affect it. I started a 20-second pulse down here, so this timer is going to give us a 20-second pulse come hell or high water. And likewise, if I start a 10-second pulse here, and then I try to come down here and start a 20-second pulse after, guess what happens? Whatever was first is first come, first served. So this one started it. It gave us a 10-second pulse, and it was like this down here never even happened. Okay, so let's modify that back to 0. Let's modify that back to 0. Moving on, we can come back up here to our instructions, and you can see we've got a time on start delay, and I'm just going to very sloppily drag that in here where it does not belong, just so we can see what that looks like. And you can see it's exactly the same, so we already know that works exactly the same as the pulse timer. For timer off, we've got the exact same thing. For our retentive timer, exact same thing. So we really don't need to load those up and demo those the same way that we've already done. So I'm just going to select all this by drawing a box around it and delete that logic right out of our program for now. Now let's look at our reset timer. So we can use that against any one of these timers, and I'm going to go ahead and use that against our timer on. So I think we're done with our pulse timer for now. So I'm just going to delete this whole network and get that out of there. And now our network 1 is our on timer. So let's come over here and we're going to create a branch. We want to normally open contact, and we want our reset timer. And our reset timer only has one set of question marks. That's only looking for one thing, and that's the name of a timer. And we want to work with our TON timer. And somehow I keep creating a period at the end of that when I select that. I don't want that, so I have to delete that out. That's weird. Over here, since we're not using our N1 anymore, I'm just going to go ahead and tap that again. And let's see how this works. Let's see if we can reset this timer. So we're going to download our program, load it, and okay, we're up and running. We've got our 10-second timer here, so let's go ahead and modify that to 1. 1, 2, okay, it's timing up, and now let's modify this reset to 1. And look at that. While that's energized, while that reset is engaged, our timer is not timing. And once we release it, now we start timing again from 0. Okay, so that reset works exactly like we expected. Now, I'm going to go ahead and first of all, let's modify our timer switch back to 0. And now I'm going to just delete out of here our reset. Okay, so that reset is gone. And instead, I'm going to bring in this load time duration. We've got our 2 boxes here, and we already know that that top one's going to be looking for the name of our timer. And the bottom is looking for a time value. And let's go ahead and give that a value of 5 seconds. So T pound 5S. And sure enough, it's giving me that period at the end again. I don't know what I'm clicking to get that, but it's something I need to figure out. And let's see how this works. So we're going to first need to download this into our PLC. Load it. There we go. And here we go. Modify to 1. And then we're going to modify this to 1. And when we did, look at what happened. Our timer timed up to 5 seconds and it stopped. Okay? So watch this. Modify to 0. Modify to 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and boom, it died at 5. Even though we have a preset time of 10 seconds on this timer, the timer stops timing at 5 now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and modify this back to 0, and when I do, I can put this back to 0, back to 1, and I expect we're going to be right back to our 10-second preset. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now, without this acting as an override on that timer, the timer works normally. It just times right up to its 10-second preset value. So coming back in here to instructions, at this point under timer operations, you know how to use all of these things.